to the councillors, do you have sympathy for those that are paying extortionate rent, sharing in most probably 3 or 4 flats, and want to get onto the property ladder, and this would give them that opportunity to do that? I'm concerned about the size of the space and the amenity space they've got, because I would like our young people to at least get the best start and live in the best properties we could possibly give them. But do you have sympathy that this is a product that could get them at least somewhere on the ladder and get them started on their lives and their careers?
Who wishes to take that question? Councillor Situ or
I can take it. I can take it.
Yep, go ahead.
Councillor Merrill, I do have sympathy for them, and I agree with you that it can be an option, but what we've got to think about is what is the greatest need. Frankly, we do not have endless lands, we do not have endless space, we do not have endless resources in itself. And any council will be building based on priority, would be developing its area based on priority. All we can tell you is the priority that we hear from our local residents. And that priority has been very clear in terms of what the area needs. And just to reiterate it again, we do believe that this is the wrong application for the area.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. In that case, I won't pursue further questions myself. I will thank the councillors for their presentation and responses to our questions. Thank you very much indeed. If I may now move forward and just receive some mini debate just to understand the general feeling. And if I were to start with Councillor O'Brien, it's quite to seek your comments.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I actually visited Varco Road yesterday because reading the papers over the weekend, I couldn't really picture what it was like to live there based on the numbers that are on a piece of paper. On the con side, yes, this is a breach of policy. It doesn't meet our 25 and 10 split. It does exceed the density, and it's not exceptional design because it breaches, well, certainly Varco Road, there's no natural light into the bathroom. They're only offering half of the amenity space. And when you talk about design, that doesn't get made up for by a payment in lieu. And also, I might be correct on this, I don't think there's any bulk storage as well, all part of exceptional design. And there's no mix of family homes, they're all one beds. And also, there doesn't strike me that there's much of a tenure mix either, that the people that are going to be eligible for these places are all going to be stamped out of the same mold. And I think that's a shame. I like developments that have a mix of tenure, different size families, different backgrounds, that sort of thing. On the pro side, I would say that the flats were much more airy and much more spacious than I ever thought they were going to be. Yes, they're small, but the clue's in the name, they are pocket. But with the way they've used the light and windows and that sort of thing, actually you don't feel claustrophobic in there at all. So I discounted my concerns about the space. Also, they have Juliet balconies, which normally means you have to rearrange your furniture to open the door. In these cases, you don't. The doors open quite okay. My big concern is that the demographic who will buy into these pocket homes at the moment are between the devil and the deep blue sea, where they can't really afford, they're at the start of their professional lives, they're post-uni, they can't really afford shared ownership or to buy privately, but they want to get up into the housing market, and this application serves a purpose. I'd finally say that I do give great weight to the opinion of ward councillors, I guess being one myself. I do hear what you're saying, but I think in this case, this is not an Old Kent Road issue. I think we all have this problem across the north of the borough in terms of wanting to provide as much social housing as we possibly can. And to get that list down, we all have families in emergency accommodation. We all feel for them and we want them to be housed properly. I totally get that. So I probably, on the weight of all of that, am slightly erring towards being in favour of this application, especially given that precedent has already been set with Varco Road anyway. I'm sorry that it's all in the Old Kent Road ward.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Wrong application, wrong place, wrong time. I'm against.
Thank you. Councillor Soames.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sort of really grappling with this because obviously, on principle, I'm really in favour of any sort of scheme or development that encourages key workers to get a footing on the housing market. You know, I myself took advantage of not this particular type of model, but a different type. But I would say, you know, 80% market rent is still truly unaffordable, and for certainly teachers starting out of university, and so it doesn't particularly. I'm not particularly in sort of favour of it. I would argue against the size. When I was looking for a property, size and amenity space was important, and that was then, notwithstanding, as we emerge from the lockdown, and we've already heard sort of nationally within the media the importance of space and the impact it has had on families that were living in restricted housing units, and the impact it's had on mental health going forward. And that's something that I am deeply concerned about and passionate about in terms of planning policy going forward. I initially welcomed the carbon dioxide savings, the high savings for this particular unit, particularly along the Oak Kent Road, because obviously with schemes coming forward, you know, we have concerns around the biodiversity and sustainability as we develop our own policies in that area. I had concerns about sunlight and daylight, but I was satisfied by the modelling that the officers were able to demonstrate. I was initially in favour of the 100% affordable housing, but as I've looked into this type of a scheme in detail, I am concerned about the lack of social housing and the breach from our own policies on that. And I agree that we repeatedly state that we want mixed communities. That is what, you know, we base our whole housing, you know, policy, and we pride ourselves in remaining sort of quite robust and making officers accountable to that, and expressing that view on our behalf to applicants. So, but the shortfall of amenity space, we have a duty of care to provide all tenure of housing for our needs. I do take the local councillors' views quite seriously. They know their local residents, they're in contact, they have that's what we do. We advocate on behalf of our local residents. So I'm at this moment in time minded to either abstain or vote against this particular scheme. I sadly to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Soames. Councillor Morell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Don't really want to go and repeat what my colleagues have just said, but in my mind, I can see the need for an affordable intermediate offer for young people within the area. I've seen the need of that, but the 80% is still, I would consider, unaffordable for most young people in the area just starting out in their careers, especially young nurses. I don't know what I'd start a teacher salary. Councillor Soames might be able to tell us what that is, but and what really is just the quality of the design. I know that, you know, from the resident that lives in the other properties that moving from a house share, which I've done before, and then moving into your own property will be absolutely wonderful. But I believe that we should expect the highest standard of design as for all our residents, not just put up with a compromise for them. So I'm minded at the moment either to abstain or object, as my colleague before me said.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I think the application appears to fall down on a number of policy points, many of which have been already outlined by the other members of the committee. So I won't seek to repeat those because I think they eloquently explained the various considerations. But I think the one that's the most notable for me is what appears to be a quite clear and significant breach of the affordable homes policy of this council and of the London plan as well, to have no social or affordable, affordable rented homes available, to only have intermediate homes is inconsistent with the plan, and therefore to have a clear and significant breach in counter to that. On balance, it seems that you need to have material reasons why that is justifiable. And I think the reasons being put forward by officers and the applicant appear to be that there is demand here for intermediate housing, and I have no doubt that that's the case. I was probably one of those people in that situation a few years ago. But then the question is whether, on balance, that is sufficient to justify an entire development which is made up entirely of intermediate housing, when, as I think Councillor Sifu put it very eloquently, it's a matter of priorities here. The priority seems to be, to me, that social housing and assisting those most in need should be what the council focuses on. And if we're not doing that, I'm not sure what the objective is. And for me, I don't think that there are sufficient weightings on the arguments about intermediate housing and the benefits of offering an entire scheme of intermediate housing that outweigh the significant issues I have with having no social housing. And for that reason, I'm minded to vote against.
Thank you. Councillor Whittam.
Yeah, I think everybody knows my feelings on the amenity space, so I won't labour that. Just to point out that we have over 10,000 people on our waiting list, never mind young professionals. We have families who are living in one-bedroom flats with 3-4 children. Those are the sort of people that we should be prioritising. I do have sympathy. I have 2 young adults in my household who may perhaps want to buy their own flat one day, but I think they'll be in a better position to get that dream than the families that we need to look after. So I'm minded to reject this application.
All righty, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. It was very useful. I think there are a number of points I was going to make, but I'm conscious of Councillor Williams' comments. Okay, and I'm also conscious that a number of statements have been made, which I think we might want to look closely at. And a good example of statements that's been made, that is on ward priority versus the AAP. So the AAP talked about the different tenures and ideal mix of tenures across the piece. What it doesn't say, for example, the council will build an estate, but it will essentially be all social. Okay? But of course, the arguments made that we want a state with mixed tenure, therefore would immediately fall down. At 105 units, with more than 2,500 already on the waiting list, and possibly another 3,500 waiting on our waiting list, out of a population of 240,000, the suggestion that this particular, and indeed modest schemes of this size would make a significant impact to our overall delivery, home delivery, when this committee has performed exceptionally compared to other committees across London in delivering a truly affordable home for local people. So I think there's some research we need to do, but I believe that there's good reason for us to not go to a motion, but to adjourn this meeting, because it appears that there may be a majority to not support the application in its current form. I believe that it would be useful for us to adjourn and to consider if we were minded to refuse, the material planning reasons why that refusal should be go through to a motion. Now, I'm happy to take guidance from officers at this point, but that's what I'm proposing, that we adjourn to consider if we were minded to refuse, the reasons for that. John or Joe would like to make comment first of all.
Well, just to comment on that, Councillor, sorry, Chair. Councillor Williams did make a plea 15 minutes ago, and I think we're going to struggle to meet with his timescale. But I'm
trying, Bill. I'm trying.
I think if this is to be considered further, then certainly we should adjourn either to closed session or alternatively to another meeting. I think there is some discussion that's going to take place here, some considerable discussion, and I'm not sure that you're going to sort of necessarily complete this within a relatively short time period. But certainly we should adjourn rather than take the matter forward now.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm happy, Chair. I'm happy to adjourn to go into private session.
Oh, right. Okay. Are you sure that, Bill? Because it will be for a while, I think.
When you say a while, what's a while?
I'm conscious of time now, and I generally try to avoid going beyond 10 o'clock, to avoid beyond review. My recommendation, Bill, and colleague committee members, is that we adjourn to a nearest opportune date to allow us to consider if we are to refuse, ground for refusals, and also where it's possible to clarify a number of the points which have been made, really just to clarify those points to ensure that the points made are actually valid. There are a number of points that have been made, and I've just given you an example of one in regards to the AAP and its discussion around the various tenures. It isn't expected that every application should be meeting our tenure mix, or are we to expect some applications on the periphery, some 100% social, some 100% in this case intermediary, for example? It's just those discussions I think we need to have, and for that reason, I'm going to recommend that we adjourn to a nearest opportune date for our next committee meeting, and which I believe is in, Simon, I think is in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Let's do that, and so that we have sufficient time to highlight these matters. Simon?
Chair, yes. Well, we're in your hands. You are the chair. The committee members have indicated to you their thoughts. If your conclusion is that it's not going to be practical to reach a conclusion this evening within a reasonable period of time, which is what you're aiming to do, then I think it does follow that you need to adjourn. I think I would just, if I may, though, Chair, I venture to say, and I know it's not your first consideration, we have a lot of business and
Indeed.
Not enough meetings, so I worry about that. But I realise you want to make a sound decision, and I hear what you say. It sounds as though you feel as though you need more time to make a sound decision.
Yes, yes. Councillor Whittam, did you have your digital hands up or not? Okay, that's not. That's okay. Thank you. Oh.
No, I was going to suggest that we do a motion to reject.
I'm not going to the motion to reject at this stage, not until we've had the discussions to resolve the motion, what that motion will contain. What are the material planning reasons for that for refusal? So I'm not going to do that. I'm putting a motion forward that we will adjourn the meeting to the next available meeting date. Can I see a seconder, please? Is there not a seconder? Okay. In that case, then, if there's not a seconder to adjourn the meeting to the next available meeting date, we'll then need to go into closed session to discuss if there is a motion to refuse, what that motion will say. Okay. In that case, then, if I can just take advice from the clerk that we will then go into closed session. Is that agreed? Is that agreed, members?
Chair, if you could
Agreed.
Sorry, Chair. If you could propose to go into a closed session in explaining why this is happening as it's laid out in that part of the script.
Okay.
And then we need a seconder, and it can be agreed by acclamation.
It's not a problem. I will go to that part of the script. Thank you very much. And so, as the committee's inclination is to overturn the officer recommendation, and before we vote, the committee would need to identify the reasons it wishes to refuse the application. Now, what I would say at this point is that I'd like to have that discussion in closed session initially, and then we'll go into open session. For 1 moment, sorry, I'm just going to just move forward. So we'll go into closed session. That committee have indicated that the majority of them are minded to refuse the planning application and counter the officer recommendation to approve. I would therefore propose we adjourn the meeting so that we can consider the drafting and validity of any potential reason for refusal, with the benefit of advice from officers, including the legal officer, as any legal advice would be exempt from information under the Council's Access to Information Procedure rules. The public may be excluded from the meeting, and I propose that the discretion be exclude the public is exercised on this occasion. So I would like to move that we adjourn the meeting for the reasons I've given. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. And is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Very good. In that case, then,